Laptop open on the counter, cold compiling, toast pops hot. Phone keeps buzzing, group chat screaming. Who's on snack?
Welcome to the Neo Notebook, the podcast dedicated to the MacBook Neo. Join us as a panel of real users, podcasters, and tech-savvy consumers dig into the latest news, hands-on experiences, and everything that's remarkable about this little machine and what it can do. So let's get some introductions around. I'm Marty Gensius. I work as an assistant professor, counselor educator, and am a podcaster, part of the podtalk.net.
And I'm Dave Ginsburg, the host of the In Touch with iOS podcast with a deep passion for technology, especially Apple, and how it's used in the real-world environments. Just coming off of an amazing interview with David Pogue, and hoping everybody can listen to it this week.
Yeah.
And I'm Eric Bolden. I worked in IT, and now I'm playing with photography and like all kinds of stuff. And I discovered today, right before it started raining, that it is in fact possible to find a Citrus Neo on a stump in the middle of the woods before it gets wet.
Really?
Yeah, I was so happy I had that color.
I was going to say, is it your Citrus MacBook Neo or was it someone else's?
No, it was mine.
All right. I'm Brett Kennedy. I'm a 33-year Mac veteran with interest in travel, photography, and videography.
Well, I went through, for those of us who listened to the show the first time, I went through and found the stories about the Neo MacBook, and there were 2,010 stories this week when the search came up. What I did with the search was eliminated one source, which is a magazine or an online service that will not be named, that does all of these different articles over and over again in different languages. So they're always published. So I wanted to just get English, and that's a very American-centric way of looking at it, English articles in there for us to look at. And when I tuned that down, it was about 650 articles. So we're talking about 100 articles a day on this topic. And so we have quite a few of them. We're going to summarize them. We have them into topical errors. I want to get reflections from the panel about them. And we'll have all of the links, not all 600, but we'll have the 30 or so that I have in the show notes for people who want to use it. We're going to get back to a topic that I think is real essential tonight, which is a lot of the stories we hear and we see in Reddit and people saying, this is my first Mac OS that I've worked with. And so we're going to talk about the topic of switching, which I think all of us have done some point in our life. I know I did back in like 2003, switched over to Mac and deal with a lot of folks who have, and I'm sure David's the same, deal with a lot of folks who are first time Apple users and getting used to that. So we're going to do a little bit at the end. And even if you're a longtime user, I think you'll find some of the information interesting and kind of confirming of your experience. We'll always start out by asking the group, are there any new uses that you found with the Neo this week?
Yeah, I can continue on with Parallels. Parallels has another toolbox. Well, it is a toolbox called Parallels Toolbox, and it does install a lot of various tools. I won't go through all of them, but notably, there's so many of them out there. I use Downy, downloading videos, specifically from YouTube, and they have a download toolbox that works. And so I went and did it, and it was just like it was working any other way on a Silicon MacBook Air, MacBook Pro. So I found some real good tools that it offers, and I'm still loving it. I just took it out earlier today when we went to some family, had some dinner, and used it just full time. with just that MacBook, because usually I would bring my Air, but this time I brought the Neo, and it just felt good. It felt like I could take this laptop on travel and not even think about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you that in Reddit, there's been a lot of chatter about parallels or virtualware, and the chatter has always been answered by people who are essentially Windows centric, talking about, oh, it's not going to do this, it can't do this, and
Right.
are you planning on running CAD programs?
No, of course not.
No, I'm not planning on.
No one can in virtual. I mean, I don't care what you have. You could have a beefed up Mac Pro or even a Mac Studio. Yeah, it'll probably run a little better, but you got to remember it's in a virtual environment. There are limitations. Brett being an IT professional as long like I am, working in this way, we know you can't expect virtual to work 100%. I work with AVDs. It's Azure Virtual Desktop, and we struggle with the same problems where things don't run, you can't get access to things, that kind of stuff. In a virtual environment, it works for the most part, but you can't expect a machine of this power is going to be anywhere near what that is. The reason I bring that up is based on what these Windows users are saying, because let's face it, you can virtualize in Windows and virtualize in other same OS. You can't virtualize Mac on a Windows machine, but we do virtualize Windows machines on Windows, because you want to have a virtual machine to be like more of a playground. So if you break something, you don't mess up your whole computer and have to start over again. So, and that's usually the intent. I mean, you can run Mac OS on Parallels on a Mac. So, I mean, I can use that as a testing ground, and if it blows up, I have a backup of it and just restore it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, for me, it's the comparison of who is buying a Neo, and you think I'm buying a Neo so I can run CAD programs?
No.
Yeah, it's
impossible.
Yeah. People who are running CAD programs, this is not the market for them. Brett, do you have anything about the parallel stuff or the virtual? And I know you've did some attempts on this using the Neo this week.
With Parallels, no, I'm actually not a Windows user at all in my personal life. At work, we have to use Windows, but those two worlds, for legal reasons, have to stay very, very separated.
Right.
So for me this week, my big thing has been following up on all of the video editing that I've been wanting to try out on it. And we've talked previously about editing 4K video with it, and I was able to get some 4K 30 frame per second video, and just like all the articles said, it handles it pretty well. I was able to put together about a 15-minute time-lapse video that was shot by my GoPro out the window while I was away at work for the day. And I got another one going on my back patio right now, so I'll have another chance at that pretty soon. I still want to test it with 4K video at 60 frames a second, because that's what I shoot all my video with when we go traveling. And so that'll be the next big test I do with that. My other experiment this week was to try to hook up with an old external monitor that I had, a portable display that just plugs in on the USB-C port. And that just didn't seem to want to work right. So I don't know if there's been a change in USB-C monitor technology since I bought that display. I bought it to have at home back, during the pandemic, so early 2020-ish. And so I'll keep tinkering with that and see if I can get it to work, and I'll report back next week.
Yeah, cool. I want to take a minute here to remind you that we have an active chat room. And even before the show started, got a nice one from Oliver, who said, thinking of pairing the Neo with the new Studio Display XDR. That way my monitor will have more memory than my computer. And Oliver also said, hey, Vision Pro owner here who just picked up a Neo. Glad there's others who are enjoying both Apple's most expensive spatial computer and the cheapest. Eric, do you have anything around that? Because you're sort of our spatial and virtual monitor guy.
Yeah, I think it works really well. And I've gotten it because I want to be able to use the Vision Pro in a coffee shop and do some Mac stuff. So I'm just using the Vision Pro as a virtual screen that's private. It works extremely well. It runs, it's light. I have no worries about accidentally spilling coffee on it the way I did with my other machine. It's the perfect combination. It really is.
Yeah, and Brian in the chat room says, what's so amazing is that the Neo can do some of the high end needs in a pinch. It's really a versatile machine. And we have Dr. Panos who's joined us. He says, hello, everyone, to everyone. So we've got an active chat room. If you join us live on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time, you can catch us doing this show live and see all the stuff we do prior to getting it going and a little bit after we get it done. But you can also join the live chat room and comment like we have with the folks who have been in here. And it's always good to, this is not a paid gig. It's always good to have folks who come into the chat room and have good ideas and send good things our way. That's really is kind of heartwarming and good for us all. So the only other thing that I did with it this week, because I struggled at the university trying to figure out the step-by-step process for getting this to work as a mirror to what's on my Neo to do presentations with. And I found out that it wasn't me and it wasn't me going crazy. It was the distinctly different workstations and how they were set up. And in some cases, which plug I use to get them in. So I'm starting to learn now that I'm in room 217, this is what I have to do to get my Neo set up. Now that I'm in 124A, this is what I differently have to do to get my Neo set up. So it's kind of the inconsistencies in the room. And that's been a problem with the Air. It's been a problem with other machines that I have in terms of plugging in to be able to use it as a mirrored monitor. So any other comments on new this week, or we can get into the news?
I have to say, for that kind of issue, I am really hopeful that AV teams all over the country will feel like they can purchase a Neo to test Mac laptops connecting to their AV systems and maybe iron out some of the rules and smooth things out.
Yeah, well, here's the craziness in the room one of the rooms I teach in. I have a projector that flickers at the top of it, at the top of the screen, executive mode, executive mode, executive mode, flickers on and off during my PowerPoint. So I went up to the second floor and went to the tech room, and I got one of the tech guys to come down. He goes, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, this is it." He goes, "Oh, that's AV. That's not ours. You have to call University AV to fix it." So he literally brought down this thing that was like a long rod with a handle on the end of it. And he goes, "Well, we can try turning it off and turning it back on and see if that fixes the problem." It didn't fix the problem. So I have to put a call into University AV to have my projector executive mode shut off. So yeah, you might have wishes for university support systems, Eric, but they fall on deaf ears with me. Lots of good action in the chat room. We really appreciate it from Oliver and Brian and folks. So let's get to the news. We have some news covering the issues of reporters writing about how the MacBook Neo is helping push the quarter in terms of sales and such. So, for example, this article that is in call to Mac. Apple shipped 7.1 million Macs in Q1 2026, more than any quarter in recent memory, pushing its global PC market share to 11%. But the MacBook Neo's launch week set a company record for first-time Mac buyers. And our show kind of speaks to that today. Another article by AppleInsider, or MacRumors, excuse me. Mac shipments grew 9% in Q1 2026, outpacing overall PC market. Another article, this one from the MacDailyNews via the New York Magazine. Apple's MacBook Neo is the best laptop you can get for $599. Sort of a review, but also talking about how it's impacting the market with that. And then finally, Apple stock. I guess this is a place where we do a disclaimer that if you're a stock owner, you have to kind of disclaim that you own stock in it. But Apple stock could surge 20%, and the MacBook Neo is a key catalyst, according to MarketWatch. Okay, so those are comments around and stories around the Mac market momentum. Any thoughts about this, guys?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, the stock market is going to react, and it has. I mean, the stock had gone way down. Well, we obviously know why the stock market's been going down with the conflict that's been going on in the Middle East. But the fact of the matter is that it is going to be continuing to help with the fact that the Neo is really driving some sales. It's getting people into the Apple stores. It's getting people to get excited about the Mac again. Pricing is good. What we'll be talking about will be the dilemma as far as being able to get a MacBook Neo at this point, but it's getting there. But overall, I think this is definitely legit.
Yeah. Any other comments on this, guys?
All right. Yeah. I don't see this as any surprise. Apple updated in March their MacBook Air, which is their best-selling laptop line, the MacBook Pros, which I believe is their second best-selling line, and then they introduced the Neo, which has been a runaway hit. So this is all very expected to me that they would have such a big surge in Mac sales for this quarter.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think we're going to see some other things come out that could impact Mac sales. Maybe a new Mac Studio, a Mac Mini, which everybody is waiting for, a new Mac Mini. So if all of that's kind of lumped into to sales, and particularly the computer sales, I think we're going to see a pretty healthy year because of the changes and the additions of M5 to most, if not all, of their line, including iPads. So, there's a question about how much that Dr. Panos put. I wonder how much this will impact the sale of the iPad Pro. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I think there are a lot of people who bought Pros or bought iPad Pros because that was the closest way to get what they were looking for. Something where they could, do browsing and email and whatever with a keyboard. And the Neo is a better fit for many of those users.
Yeah, there's a lot of comparisons about this is just an iPad with a keyboard in terms of it. To me, and Dave and I have talked about this, I have kind of left the iPad behind. It just is not an environment that and an operating system that I can get into and can follow and can use. So I really think in the folks who are kind of will use multiple platforms or multiple OSs. I don't know if it'll impact them as much, but for me, I don't think it'll have a bit of impact on it. I don't see myself refreshing my iPads, and a new iPad is not going to steal away my interest in the Mac OS line because that's where I'm doing the work. So And Brian, his response is, I think there's significant overlap of users who would be interested in both. So interesting
Well,
comment
I mean,
there. Yeah.
I'll add my thoughts on this. I support the iPads and for work. These folks have dual devices, with a laptop and an iPad. So I see that trend going across a lot of the enterprise and corporate, or they're just using the iPads as strictly as a device to travel with. You see a lot of executives who don't want to travel with a laptop at all and want just the iPad as for the simplicity of it, but having a big screen. But like, who knows if and when the iPhone Fold comes out? We talked about this, Marty. Could that
Yeah.
be another game changer? Is Apple really starting to go against the iPad? But I just can't see it because the iPad's still a very legitimate product. A lot of people like the Mini, they like the Air, they like the Pro,
Mhm.
and even the low end one that's out there, that's still out there. Was it the A18? I think it is. It's in there now.
Yeah.
For a low end device, which is lower priced than even the MacBook Neo. I don't think the iPad is going anywhere anytime soon. It's not a perfect fit for lots of people. Yeah, in your case, Marty, yeah, you use the Mac quite a bit, and the iPad just hasn't really fit in your workflow. It works in mine. I mean, I tend to use it, whenever possible. I mean, obviously with the multiple laptops I have got now plus work laptops, but I still have to stay on top of what goes on in the iPad world no matter what, because of
Mhm.
working in IT. So I don't want to not use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also
I got.
true that the oh, go ahead, Brad.
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, okay. I just think the iPad OS itself is in a bit of a state of transition right now. It's been several years since they split iPad OS off from iOS, but it stayed very parallel to the iPhone in the
Mhm.
capabilities at the operating system level. And it wasn't
Right.
until this last year with iPad OS 26 that we saw them introduce a windowing system that's very similar to Mac OS. It got the little traffic signal buttons at the top corner, just like Mac OS Windows have now, and I think in the next couple years they're going to evolve that to be a little bit more powerful. So I think the iPad, especially the iPad Pro section of their line, is really going to become that touchscreen Mac that people keep asking for. So
Mhm.
I think the story there isn't quite complete yet. I think there's more to be seen there.
Eric, you want to get in on this?
Yeah, for people that just wanted a machine that was an inexpensive Mac for travel, the Neo now gives them that, and the iPad was never quite the perfect match. But for people that need a better screen than what the Neo has, the iPad is perfect. So if you want to go through and look at a bunch of pictures and zoom in on the picture, zoom back out again, and swipe through to some other ones, I have nothing else that can beat that. It's portable, I can carry it with me. So I still kind of use both. But when I traveled with the iPad, I had a hard time just using the iPad to remote back into to work. Um, I had to have a Mac on the other end somewhere for a couple of things I needed to do. With the Neo, I can travel with the two devices, and the Neo covers all the Mac stuff. The iPad covers all the screen related things. I almost could maybe travel without the iPad, but the Neo fixes a need I had. And I agree with the Mini. You really can't beat that for reading books.
Yeah. I want to put in maybe a final word on this, and then let's get on to the other topic, which or another news item, which is about the dilemma with chips. But Dr. Panos said, except gaming, you can't play Call of Duty without an iPad Pro. Like you guys, I've hardly used my iPad and mostly my MacBook Pro. So that's
Mhm.
Panos's take on it. Next section that we're going to talk about in terms of news has been the story that just keeps on giving. It came out right like on Monday, and then it's been chased all week long. It's the idea that the MacBook Neo is too popular for its own good. There's a supply chain issue because it demands, and this is coming out of 9 to 5 Mac, it demands, exceeds the expectation. It's difficult. It's a definitive breakdown of Apple's A18 Pro chip squeeze. The Neo was built around binned iPhone 16 Pro chips, the ones with slightly defective GPU core that would otherwise be discarded. And guess what? They're running out of discarded chips. Or that's the rumor. I don't know if it's true, only because that's what they're saying is causing the time delay between when you order your Neo and when you get your Neo. They don't talk about production demand. They don't talk about production capability, but they put this right on the chip, which I think is kind of assumptive in their part. Another one from AppleInsider. Incredible MacBook Neo demand may finish off Apple's A18 Pro stock. And then a third one from TechRadar. Want a MacBook Neo? You'll now be waiting weeks for delivery, and rumors suggest this delay could get much worse. Guys, what do you think about all this? Are we going to solve the A18 chip problem tonight?
Not tonight.
Not tonight, no. It's going to be tough. You got the RAM chip shortage as well. That's what's holding back the the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio, because the chip supply is just depleted. There's not making enough, with the way everything is going these days. So the Mac Mini is affected too. I needed to buy some more of them, and they're 3 to 5 weeks out right now. For any model, doesn't matter which one you get. Even if you customize it, it'd probably be even worse if you get the bigger RAM and larger solid state drives. So I think it's not only is it affecting the chip in the Neo, it's affecting it across all their lines. Just like they eliminated the 512 gigabyte solid state in the Studio and put it right to 1 terabyte. And the same thing with the MacBook Pro.
Yeah, Brett, you've got something. Have you got something on this?
I'm just curious what this means, because I'm pretty sure that the iPhone 16 Pro is not in production anymore. And so I doubt that they're producing new chips for a phone they're not making either. So I wonder how they address this. Is it something where they bring the A19 chip in earlier than expected to keep supply going? Because I would highly doubt that they're going to go back and produce more binned chips that would fit the Neo. That just doesn't make sense. So I think it's really interesting if how Apple is going to respond to this if they choose to bring the updates for this computer forward in time and update it earlier than expected so that they can keep it on the market, or what. But yeah, this seems to be a real dilemma for keeping such a popular product on shelves.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to push forward the Neo 2. In fact, my thinking is about this is that the Neo's going to be, we're talking about an iPad mini that's about 2 years in rotation since the last upgrade. And I think we're not going to see that upgrade until it hits a 2-year mark. I suspect, and we see this with phones too. We saw that with the 16 or the 17. We saw that with the S versions, that it was a 2-year upgrade on the low end models. And so I suspect they're going to do a 2-year upgrade on the Neos. They're not going to push one out next year because it's not going to help their sales instead from the low end to do that. Instead, they might do another run of A18 chips. And the good ones, they'll just take off or shut off. I think Eric suggested this: shut off one of the cores or some of the memory on it, so and then use that in the device. I just don't. There's such a demand for this product, that's true, but I don't see them jumping quickly to an upgrade and starting a new production line of Neo 2s. I really think for stability, for industry that buys them, and for schools that buy them. They don't want to buy something that in 12 months there's going to be a new version out of it. They, particularly low end models, when they're functional, when they're perfectly functional with where they are. So that's my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Oliver disagrees. He says, I'm assuming it's a he, I really don't think they're going to make more chips. It defeats the whole purpose of chips being basically free. I think they can afford to make more chips and put the bin ones in as well as shutting off the bad ones. It's a matter of getting in line, getting to the front of the line for everybody that wants those chips being made. I think it's easier than them just stopping a line. My thoughts about the M4s on the studios and the M4s on the minis is they're going to release the M5 soon. They're already geared up to do that. So,
I mean, the Neos are only 2 to 3 weeks out, so they have to be still making chips because they're going to continue to want to fulfill what orders are out there still. So I can't imagine they're not going to be making these chips, the 18 Pro. But I don't see, it's not not Apple's way to just all of a sudden just move it up to the next level because that's how they started. They want the product to just work its way out for the first year and then see where they can go, next year in 2027, because, the rumors of the Neo 2 are ready and all that stuff. It's kind of been Apple's track record was what they would do. They want to sit on a product, just like we've been talking about the iPhone Air. The iPhone Air wasn't a big seller, but they're still committed to wanting to continue the product line, just like they did with the iPhone 12 mini and the iPhone 13 mini. They kept that for 2 years. And then they abandoned it because it just didn't sell. Hopefully the Air is a different story. So, I mean, same thing with the Macs. If they introduce this is the first new product of a Mac for quite a long time. So it's going to be something to see what happens. And I think it's going to still be, they're still going to be making chips.
yeah, we'll see.
Yep.
And you kind of hinted at the next article or the next topic, which is what comes next, MacBook Neo, the Neo 2. And there are some articles from Tom's Guide in this talking about major performance updates on the Neo 2, the 2027 version. That has taken off with Call to Mac, talking about a Neo 2 will boast 50% more RAM.
Mm-hmm.
And then Neo 2 is rumored a faster chip set. Oh boy, say that fast 5 times. Has Apple announced the Neo 2 yet?
No.
Nope. And they won't for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, their track record, a year. At the very most, it's going to be a year before we see another Neo.
Yeah.
No, but what they have done is they've announced the iPhone 17 Pro. And so if it follows up the next year using the previous year's Pro chip for the Neo, then it's going to be a binned chip from the iPhone 17 Pro production line that goes into the Neo 2. That's how they already know that it would have the 12 gigs of RAM, because that's what's shipping in the chips that are for an existing product. So right now, while they're actively producing iPhone 17 Pros, they're stockpiling all those bin chips that are going to get used for the next round of MacBook Neos. I'm just interested to find out for the Neo 2. They have the issue of the mismatched speeds on the 2 USB ports. I think that's one of the things they should be putting a priority on correcting, because that's a little bit of a rough edge for the launch version of the Neo. And then just from my personal experience so far, one thing I've really missed from my other laptops is the backlit keyboard. So I'll put that on my wish list for the Neo 2.
I tell you, if wishes were horses, we'd all ride for free. And eventually, what would happen is we would not be having a MacBook Neo. We would be having a MacBook Air. Yeah, my concern is they have to not have duplication between their lines of what features are there. Backlit keyboards are not in the Neo because the power drain and because of the internal and what they can do with the internals in that size. Same reason for the haptic keyboard. That doesn't exist because cost, the mechanics, and how that puts it too close to a higher cost competitor in their own chain. So they don't want to cannibalize it too much from that standpoint. Yeah, and Oliver is making making a comment in the chat room about the margins are thin. They're not going to cost to they're not going to charge to build more chips for this line. They're not making money on the machine. They're making money on the services when people buy it, and that's where I think where they make up their margin.
They're not losing money either. So I think what will happen is the whole memory situation is far worse and is going to last for a lot longer. And so I think we'll see a rapid switch to the M5 because that will simplify some things, and the Mini will come out. The M5 Pros will come out. It wouldn't surprise me if the price of those machines is significantly higher to
Yeah.
account for the memory issues. And as soon as you do that, with the Mini being more expensive, the newer laptops being more expensive, then that makes the Neo even more attractive. And I think if the demand numbers hit a certain point, then firing up production lines to produce more chips then becomes economical just because you're going to need to produce so many devices that maybe it's worth starting back up again. And if you're bringing down the M4 lines, then there's space and capacity to bring back a line for a while. I don't, it's potentially easier than trying to accelerate a new model that I think they're in no way ready to push out yet. Although I'm sure they're testing it.
Yeah. I'm looking at it at the time. I want to get through some sections that we have. There are a series of articles on repairing your MacBook Neo. That includes an article from 9 to 5 Mac that official repair parts for the MacBook Neo are now available via Apple's self-service repair. Do-it-yourself MacBook Neo upgrade can boost the SSD to 1 terabyte. We kind of talked about this last week. It boosted it to 1 terabyte, but it wouldn't run certain things. This came out of a YouTuber, DOS Dude 1, swapped his Neo soldered NAND chip for a 1 terabyte version. That's 9 to 5. And then modded MacBook Neo is the version Apple never made. This comes from Notebook Check. I'll post all those links for folks who want to know about it. Any comments from the group on modding these things?
In most cases, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Eric I think you've been more amazed at what people can do with it, with the mods. My attitude is it's like plastic surgery. Just grow old gracefully. Don't start doing plastic surgery on yourself. It never turns out well.
I hope
Okay.
Apple's paying attention to the more popular mods, though. Just using that as a indicator of what might be something to look at for future models of their laptop lines.
Yeah. 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 So anyway, let's go on to the next one, which is a popular topic in our group. MacBook Neo meets Windows. And and some articles in here. I love this title. This is coming from Notebook Check. It is the MacBook Neo punches above its weight in Windows gaming test. And it's a good article on that. And it says basically YouTuber ETA Prime ran Windows 11 ARM via Parallels desktop on the Neo, finding performance is better than expected for light gaming, especially native ARM titles and indie games. GTA 5 via crossover was playable. More demanding x86 titles were not. 8 gigabytes of RAM shared between macOS and the VM remains the key constraint with it. Then another article, this comes from The Verge. MacBook Neo is the best thing to happen to Windows in years. Microsoft always responds to threat to Windows by improving its operating system. Dave, do you have any faith that the next operating system of Windows is going to be better?
No. Apple. See, I'm so used to saying Apple. Microsoft knows there's a lot of mud in their face with the Windows 11. They've had tons and tons of complaints of various things I'm not going to spend time even talking about here. But they knew the writing was on the wall. They reacted to it, and they said, we're working hard to make this as a better experience. And we have so many people that are having challenges and blah, blah, blah. Probably what's going to end up happening is Windows 12 is probably going to come out at some point. I mean, they've been on Windows 11 for quite a few years. So I think Apple, see, again, I'm so used to saying Apple. Microsoft is got to use, they've got to refresh it. I mean, I don't know where Microsoft's thought is to where they're going. I mean, is it going to be more of a terminal, not even a terminal, like a web-based operating system? Yeah, who knows what they're looking to do. They don't want to be in the operating system business. They make all their money in Azure and hosting and all that. The Windows and Office isn't as profitable as it used to be.
Yeah. A question in here, maybe you can answer directly from Dr. Panos. When MacBooks used Intel processors, users could switch to Windows. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, you used to use Boot Camp. Boot Camp was a tool, and I thought it was a horrible tool, honestly. I mean, when I attempted to do it, I just didn't like the fact that I had to boot out of Mac and go into Windows using Boot Camp. So I've been using Parallels probably 15 years. I mean, I've been using it for a long time because I want to stay in both environments, but I want to also be able to use be in the Mac environment. I can't do virtualization that way from work, but I do it for personal because that's how I stay on top of things. But I don't find that the experience with Boot Camp was very, very good at all. And a lot of times Apple that kind of faded away from it and abandoned it, and they weren't upgrading drivers and such where it would interface between the two. But then when they moved to the silicon-based processor, it was a slow go with Parallels for a while. I mean, they really had to work hard, because you have to use the ARM-based version of Windows. And when it came out right around when Windows 10 was still around, and they only had the ARM-based version of Windows 10 in beta, and they never released it. So it was near impossible to do it. But when Windows 11 came out, then they were doing ARM-based 64 versions that allowed you to do it. So, but I don't see it improving anytime soon. Again, I work in the Windows world for not by choice, but it's also good to stay on top and see what Microsoft's doing. So,
yeah, with Boot Camp, I had it on. I think it was one of the earliest machines because I'm a switcher, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And I thought, well, this is cool. I can put Windows on it, and I put Windows on it, and I was running Apple's side, running Microsoft Word. And on the Apple side, every time I clicked on a Microsoft Word document, it would throw me over to the Windows side to do the editing on it. It drove me nuts. And
yeah, it was so painful.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a horrible trip down memory lane. I also heard, Dave, that the new, we don't know what's going to happen with Windows 12, but they're talking about compartmentalizing it. So it won't be sort of a unified operating system, but there'll be pieces of it, which is more opportunity for it to screw up, probably.
Exactly.
It's because it's in pieces. So
right.
We'll see what happens with that. Again, articles on the Windows comparisons are in the show notes. I'm going to go over this section and just not even click to the links. The community voices, this is where real users weigh in. A lot of this coming from the Reddit community and the MacBook Neo Reddit community. So thank you, MacBook Neo Reddit. I'm not going to click on these links, but things like lifetime Windows user, first Mac tools and tips, how everyone's MacBook Neo is holding up so far. Is MacBook Neo good for video editing? And Brett talked about that already today, and that's exciting to hear. Has anybody tried Neo for online teaching? That comes from the subreddit online ESL teaching. So some interesting articles in there. We'll jump from that. And there is another site that came up quite a bit this week with my searching, and it is webproeducation.org. And this is a site that, from what I can tell, has a lot of web educational material on it in terms of how to do web education. So I know Brian is watching or listening to us, and he's an instructor. This might be a site either he's familiar with or might want to look at. But when I did a search for MacBook Neo articles, this site came up a lot. And what's come up is they have lots of how-to tips on this. So you will find sections on, and these are only a few. I could have flooded more of them in here. So I suggest you go to the site webproeducation.org. How to connect and set up an external display on a MacBook Neo, connect an external USB microphone to a MacBook Neo, turn on AirDrop on a MacBook Neo, remove apps from the dock on a MacBook Neo, create folders on MacBook Neo. So it goes to some real basic stuff that probably crosses the whole macOS platform. But again, some of those sample articles will be in the show notes, and encourage you to take a look at that site, webproeducation.org. Mm-hmm. Now, in time, I'm looking at the time, and I do not want to skip this over because I'd like to get your ideas around this. Lots of chatter this week from people who are first-time users of the macOS system, and lots of how do you do this, how do you do that, and I think maybe some folks are really freaked out by it. I don't know, Dave, or any of you, if you've worked with first-time users, they get rather anxious. My thought is they think they're going to break it if they do something wrong. And, but we have a list of articles and resources for first-time users. Some of them coming directly from Apple, other of them coming from other sources. MacMost is another source that has this, but articles like switch from Windows to Mac, Mac tips for Windows switchers, Mac Neo, Mac does that. That's directly from the Apple site, and get to know what to know when switching from Windows to Mac from MacMost. And Brian has suggested as part of it, I'm watching this in the chat, as him talking about it having a significant dent in the education market in the next few years with schools. They used to be all about the education market when I was younger.
Right.
And they kind of pulled away from that. So I think Brian has a good concept there in terms of what he's thinking of. So anyways, we have these resources. They will be in the show notes that you can link on. So either go to the show notes of the podcast if you're listening to this, or go to the show notes of the video cast once I get the production up later tonight. And I just kind of want to ask the team two questions. And we'll start with two questions. What was the single most confusing thing you encountered when you first switched to Mac OS? And how did you solve it? Who wants the first shot at this one?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
when I first switched, I was just the windowing, getting used to the menuing, how to close a window, open a window, resize a window. And I still have some struggles to this day, even though I've been doing it for, gosh, 10 was it been 20 years almost now, and but that was probably the biggest thing I had a challenge with, just knowing where to go, how to do things, and being on the tech end of things. I was used to working in command prompts, doing commands, and when I had to, and learning how terminal works, being it's a Linux based operating system, you have to to learn that. It's a little different from what they're doing DOS based commands. PowerShell is a big thing now. Now PowerShell covers between Mac and Windows now, so that's a plus. So I've seen a lot of it evolve between the two, but that was probably the biggest challenge, is getting used to the interface. Within 2 years, I was already supporting them after I switched at work. So, and I'm a pretty fast learner and self-taught. So it didn't take me too long. But there's others out there who struggle. I know.
Yeah. I'll tip in here. I think for me, the thing that was difficult, I got my first Mac, somebody loaned it to me to do some production on it, and they put Windows-based programs on it. But they put the programs directly on the desktop. And I was used to doing that with Windows, and it's like, I don't want this on the desktop. I'm going to delete it. And I wound up deleting the whole program instead of deleting what was an alias on it. So I had to get used to the way programs were stored. The other thing that was the really difficult thing for me to get used to, took me about 3 weeks of working on a Mac straight before, was the muscle memory of closing programs in the upper left-hand corner, or closing windows in the upper left-hand corner instead of closing them in the upper right-hand corner where they are with Windows at the time. And I kept going to the wrong corner to try and close a window or minimize a window out of the way. And that's all muscle memory. That's all, and mouse. And I still use a mouse for a lot that I do. Over a trackpad, I'll use a mouse, but that was it. Windows management, like David said, was another thing with fixing for it. Any thoughts on this, Eric or Brett?
I'm not the person to ask this question to, because I am pretty much 100% Mac native. I went from having a Apple IIe when I was a kid to my first Mac was a Mac LC3. So I joined the Mac community when we were running System 7.1 back then. So it's been a long ride with Apple on this, and the macOS is just home to me. So everything is very easy for me to do. But I do have to help some switchers in my life who are trying or have tried to jump to macOS from Windows, and the biggest thing for them seems to be forgetting that for the Mac, the Command key replaces Control for your keyboard shortcuts.
Yes.
The hotkey you use for the different commands like copy, paste, and stuff is all the same. You're just pushing Command instead of Control to execute those functions.
Mm-hmm.
For the other part of the question, though, about what you're surprised Windows doesn't do, for me the big one is Quick Look. It always blows them away when I show them. Oh yeah, if you just click this file and press the spacebar, you get a little preview of what's already in there, so you don't have to wait for an app to launch, bring up the document, and oh, this isn't what I want, and quit out of it. You just push the space bar and it pops right up. And that's always a big hit of a feature when I show that to people who are switching over from Windows.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you in particular for switchers, because even though you've been in that environment all your life, when you have Windows users that are starting to use Mac because you've been in that environment all your life, they probably want to get some help from you on how to do that. And so your comments, Brett, about things that you've found switchers having to deal with is helpful. That's where I was going to go with that question, but you kind of went there with it already, and that's cool. Eric, do you have comments on either the first or second question that I have laid out?
Well, My switcher story was from an Apple IIe to the Mac Plus, so that's probably not going to be helpful to people. I was going to say two things. One is in your resources section, the what to know when switching to Windows to Mac. It's a video you can watch. It kind of goes on an overview of common key commands, where things are, what they look like, what the terms are. It's a really nice overview. You could watch it quick, and it will clear up a lot of things that might not make immediate sense. And then Apple's got a bunch of guides for, other details on how to actually do something. The one thing I found was there's an app called Preview that lets you open PDFs, but you can also open images in it. And remembering that PDFs are a native file type on Mac, so almost anything that can print to a PDF without having to get Adobe Acrobat or something else. You might want that something else, but you get that functionality just out of the box, which is a nice convenience.
Yeah, for me, the second question about what was the thing that you discovered when starting on a Mac that you thought, why doesn't Windows do this? Brett talked about Preview. For me, I had to get used to the fact that there was so much more that I could do intuitively, particularly drop and drag. At that time wasn't a functional part of Windows as it is now, but it was like, oh, wow, I don't have to do this and direct it to open this. I can just make choices and take actions on this file because the operating system knows where I'm going with it. So that was, and I thought, why doesn't Windows do this? Why is it so klutzy on Windows at the time? I don't know if anybody has any more comments on that or questions about that.
I have one last thing for you mentioned the website, I think it was MacMost.
Yeah,
And in the past, I found some pretty nifty cheat sheets that they make for each version of macOS, where it's a set of keyboard commands for the Finder that has like, okay, here's Command N for a new window, Command Shift N
yeah.
for a new folder, a space bar for quick look, and it has it separated out by what version of macOS you're running, so it's specific to your operating system. And that's been something really helpful to get beginners to be more power users.
I don't remember keyboard commands very well. And so I was playing around in Amazon or looking somewhere for, or maybe it was Etsy, looking for accessories for the MacBook Neo. And somebody has created clear labels with dark type on it that has
Yep.
all the keyboard commands that you can stick on your MacBook Neo inside, where you would be probably resting your palm on it as you're typing. And I just don't want to crud up the inside of my MacBook Neo with
Yeah.
with
Or any
commands,
Mac.
or any Mac.
Yeah,
And they
I
talk
found
about
those.
how it's removable and it doesn't really leave
Yeah,
that much of a stain. It's like, no, I don't want to do
or
that.
just have an index
Which
card
should
or
leave
something
no
inside.
stain.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sell it. I see them. I bought one on Amazon. They sell them too.
Yeah. Okay. So lots of good resources in here for you to look at if you're new with it. I one final thing I want to pose, and this comes from Brian. I would argue that conversions from Windows to Mac is easier now than 20 years ago, as so much more activity, productivity, and consumption in browsers is based on a rather universal aspect between the OSs. I think, and I in another on another show, the question I said, I think it's easier for people to switch from Windows to Mac OS than it would be from someone to switch from Mac OS to Windows. There's just not and I can't imagine what that's like because I did the former and not the latter. But it just feels like if I try to pick up a Windows operating system now, there's so much that I've forgotten that when I was doing DOS commands back when I first started using Windows and used to remember all of those file commands and such that you could do with DOS lines, but I can't remember that stuff anymore. And I think the operating system is advanced to a point where I'd have to be a student of it to be able to pick it back up in terms of using it. So that's my comments on that. We have got some wonderful comments in the chat room from Brian, from Dr. Panos, from Peter Emery is in. I've been using KeyQ app to work out which keyboard shortcuts are relevant to the actual active app in use. There is a KeyQ app that if you want to learn those. Thanks for that, Peter. Thanks to Oliver, who has been very active in the chat. And we also had, God, I missed him. Avery was in here, I think, also. So we've had some good folks in the chat room tonight, and I appreciate their comments. And it's nice because they're having conversations with each other. They're not just throwing stuff at us, which is good. And they're being kind to each other.
By the way, KeyQ is available in SetApp.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you have a SetApp, subscription, it's available for you there. So let's find out where everybody can find you. We'll start with David Ginsburg.
Well, thanks, Marty. Thanks for having me. You can find me at InTouchByOS at InTouchByOS.com. Just like I mentioned, I have a pretty awesome interview with David Pogue talking about his book, Apple, the First 50 Years. Come check that out this coming week. You can find me on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/InTouchByOS. I'm here on Sunday nights, Neo Notebook. Mondays, Vision Profiles with Marty and Eric. Tuesdays, Mac Voices Live with Chuck Joyner and the crew. Thursdays, we record In Touch with iOS Live, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on the YouTube channel, as well as the Mac Show on the British Tech Network on Fridays. And you can find me on Blue Sky, Mastodon at DaveG65.
Eric.
I can be found on Mastodon at EA Bolden at techhub.social or EA Bolden at mes.to. Otherwise, of course, here on the Neo Notebook on Sundays, Mondays on Vision Profiles, Tuesdays on Mac Voices Live, Thursdays on In Touch with iOS.
All right. And Brett, I hope you're enjoying yourself because you're certainly putting the work in on this. And this is your first kind of podcast adventure. So I also know that you've got to try and keep up with the rest of us, but just I can see you getting into it more and more, and I hope you're with us.
Yeah. I'm doing my best to keep up with you guys. It's tough being the newbie around here, but I'm dedicated to doing the best that I can here. So these days, my social media choice is Mastodon. You can find me bcannady at twit.social. And since, again, this is my first podcast, so you can find me here Sunday nights when we record Neo Notebook.
All right. And you can find me at Gencius, Jencius on Blue Sky and Mastodon. You can communicate with me that way. Many of the shows that people talked about, I'm on too. So you can find out about that and the other shows that I do on the podtalk.net. That's the website where I have all of them collected under that brand. It's great to have Dave, Eric, and Brett with me on this show, and it's great to be on other shows with these guys too. But check out the podtalk.net and you'll see the kind of creative nut stuff that I'm into with podcasting. Thanks for watching the Neo Notebook. And, new episodes drop every Sunday night at YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch the live stream and join the wonderful group of people that we had in having conversations around the topic and the articles that we do. You can subscribe to us at youtube.com/@the Neo Notebook. You can contact us at the podtalknetwork@gmail.com. And of course, the network, the website is thepodtalk.net. Spread the word to other neophyte users, and we will see you next time.
Take a break and optimize all these hasty